I have to tell you something. I'm broke. I lost everything.
What about the rent? Where will we go?
The restaurant went silent. Not because someone proposed. Not because a celebrity walked in. But because the woman sitting across from the single dad just whispered the words no one wants to say on a date at an upscale Italian restaurant where the cheapest entree costs $43. I'm broke. I'm so sorry. I'm completely broke. Her card had just declined. Then the backup card. In front of the waiter with the judgmental eyebrows and the couple at the next table who were definitely listening. Phoebe Saunders. 28 years old, brown hair falling in her face, pink top that had seemed so cute 3 hours ago and now felt like a costume, was dying inside. Ray Morris, 33, single father of twin girls, the man she'd been falling for over the past 4 months, the man she'd been desperately trying to impress, reached for his wallet. Don't worry, I've got it. His card declined too. The silence was suffocating. And then he said the words that should have saved them. The words that should have been the beginning of something beautiful and honest. Me too. I've been faking it this whole time. It should have been a relief. Instead, it was the first crack in a foundation that would completely collapse. Because here's what no one tells you about being broke together. It only works if you're actually together. If you're honest. If you're a team. Ray and Phoebe weren't honest. And what happened next destroyed them both. The coffee shop on Fairmont Street smelled like burnt espresso and broken dreams, which was appropriate because that's where Phoebe Saunders' credit card decided to die. I'm so sorry, Phoebe said for the third time, her fingers fumbling through her wallet as the barista, a teenager with impressive patience and even more impressive eyebrow piercings, waited. I swear I had another card. It's $4. A voice said from behind her. Deep, warm, with just enough humor to not sound condescending. I've got it. Phoebe spun around, ready to deliver her practice speech about not needing charity. But the words died in her throat. The man was ordinary. Beautifully, remarkably ordinary. Average height, average build, short black hair neatly trimmed, clean-shaven face that wore kindness the way some men wore cologne. Naturally, without trying. He wore a navy blue long-sleeve shirt and black trousers, nothing fancy. But something about the way he stood there, card already out, small smile playing at his lips, made her forget to be offended. I really can't, Phoebe started. You can pay me back by not making me drink this coffee alone, he said, gesturing to the empty shop. I'm Ray Morris. And before you think this is some kind of pickup line, full disclosure. I have twin 7-year-old daughters who will absolutely interrogate me about why I bought coffee for a stranger. So I need a good story. Despite everything. Despite her checking account that currently held $47.23. Despite the student loan payment that would auto-deduct in 2 days and overdraft her. Despite the shame burning in her chest, Phoebe laughed. Phoebe, she said. Phoebe Saunders. And I think, I rescued a damsel in distress from Dieckhoff disaster, is a pretty solid story for 7-year-olds. That was the first lie. Not a big one. Just a tiny omission of the word always before in distress. Their first date was at an Ethiopian restaurant where Ray insisted on paying because you bought last time. She'd bought him a $2 coffee as payback, hardly equal. Phoebe didn't argue. She told herself it was feminist to let him pay if he wanted to. Really, her account was down to $23. Their second date, Phoebe insisted on covering it. She put it on her credit card, the one that still had $340 of available credit before it maxed out. Dinner and a movie, $67. Worth it to see Ray smile when she grabbed the check. Their third date, Ray paid. Fourth date, Phoebe. They fell into a rhythm, trading off, both privately believing they were being fair, both privately drowning. 6 weeks in, Ray mentioned his startup. It's a platform connecting small businesses with micro-investors. He explained over Thai food that Phoebe was paying for with rent money she'd figure out later. We're in talks with some major clients. It's just startup life, you know? Feast or famine. Mostly famine right now, but the feast is coming. The feast was not coming. The feast had left the building 3 months ago when their lead developer quit and their primary client pulled out. Ray's business checking account had $1,247 in it, and payroll for his 2 remaining employees was due in 5 days. But Phoebe nodded, smiled, said, "That's amazing," and felt a small, dark seed of inadequacy take root in her chest. He's building something. I'm just surviving. 8 weeks in, Phoebe mentioned her job. Marketing coordinator at Brighton and Associates, she said, making it sound more impressive than it was. It's great. Good benefits, room for growth. I'm working on some really exciting campaigns. She didn't mention that marketing coordinator meant she ran their social media for $42,000 a year in one of the most expensive cities in America. She didn't mention that good benefits still left her paying $340 a month for health insurance. She didn't mention that her student loans, $127,000 from a state school because she'd had to take out living expenses too, $943 of her paycheck every month. She didn't mention that after rent, $1,450 for a studio, loans, $943, insurance, $340, utilities, $150, and transportation, $180. She had roughly $427 a month for food, clothing, emergencies, and apparently, dates with a man whose smile made her forget she was drowning. Ray didn't ask for details. He was too busy hiding his own sinking ship. 3 months in, Ray introduced Phoebe to his daughters. Lily and Violet Morris were identical twins in the way that made strangers do double takes and ask invasive questions. Same dark curly hair, same bright brown eyes, same gap-toothed smiles that could melt titanium. But Lily was the quiet observer, while Violet was the tiny extrovert who'd introduced herself to Phoebe within 4 seconds of meeting her. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Violet asked with the brutal honesty only 7-year-olds possess. "Violet!" Ray's face flushed. "We talked about..." "It's okay," Phoebe said, kneeling down to Violet's eye level. "I'm your daddy's friend. Is that okay with you? Do you like pancakes?" "I love pancakes." "Then you can stay," Violet declared, as if that was the only qualification that mattered. Lily watched from behind Ray's leg, assessing. Then, quietly, "Do you know about our mama?" The air shifted. Ray's hand found Lily's shoulder, squeezed gently. "I know she's not here," Phoebe said softly. "And I know that must be really hard." "She died when we were born," Lily said matter-of-factly, but her small hand reached for Ray's. "Daddy says she loved us more than anything. He has her ring in a safe place for when we're old enough." Phoebe's eyes found Ray's. In that moment, she saw past the carefully maintained facade of the successful entrepreneur. She saw a man raising 2 daughters alone, carrying the ghost of a woman who'd sacrificed everything to bring them into the world. "She sounds like she was pretty amazing," Phoebe said, her voice thick. "She was," Ray said quietly. Then, to the girls, "Who wants to show Phoebe your room?" Later, after the girls were in bed, Ray and Phoebe sat on his modest couch in his modest 2-bedroom apartment that he could barely afford. "Their mother's name was Keisha," Ray said, staring at the photo on the wall. A beautiful black woman with Ray's eyes and a smile that could light up the night. Complications during delivery. They gave her a choice, save herself or save both babies. She didn't even hesitate. "Ray." The ring, her engagement ring, "I've kept it in a safe deposit box. For them. For when they're old enough to understand what she gave up." His voice cracked. "Sometimes I feel like I'm failing her. Like I'm not giving them the life she died to give them." Phoebe took his hand. "You're here. You're present. You're loving them. That's everything." What Phoebe didn't know. Ray was 3 months behind on his business loan. His startup was hemorrhaging money. He'd been using personal credit cards to cover business expenses, telling himself it was temporary, that the next client would come through, that he'd figure it out before it all collapsed. What Ray didn't know, Phoebe had taken her first payday loan that week. $500 at 391% APR, due back in 2 weeks. She'd needed it to afford the girl's birthday present, matching science kits because Violet mentioned liking experiments. She told herself it was a one-time thing, that she'd pay it back with her next paycheck, that it was worth it to be the kind of woman Ray and his daughters deserved. They sat there in the dark, holding hands, each protecting the other from the truth. The beautiful lie had begun. Phoebe's phone had become her enemy. It buzzed during meetings with payment reminders. It lit up during dinners with collection calls from numbers she didn't recognize. It haunted her dreams with app notifications from Speedy Cash, Quick Loan, and Rapid Borrow. Names designed to sound helpful. Interest rates designed to destroy you. The $500 payday loan had become $673 with fees when she couldn't pay it back in 2 weeks. So she took out another loan, $700 from a different company to pay off the first one. Then she needed $500 more for rent. Then $300 for a car repair she couldn't ignore. For months into dating Ray, Phoebe had 3 different payday loans, totaling $2,100 in principal, but costing $417 a month just in interest and fees. Not principal, just the cost of having the debt. Her student loans didn't care about her new expenses. Neither did her landlord. Neither did her credit card companies, who'd started raising her rates when they detected financial stress, because when you're drowning, the system hands you an anchor. But every time she saw Ray, Phoebe smiled. She dressed carefully, did her makeup, carried herself with the confidence of someone who had their life together. She'd learned this from her mother. Never let them see you struggle. Never be the burden. Never be the reason someone has to sacrifice. Ray's startup, TechConnect Solutions, was dying. The major client they'd been courting for 6 months, the one that was going to change everything, sent the email on a Tuesday morning at 11:47 a.m. Ray read it 3 times, each time hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something that didn't mean complete collapse. After careful consideration, we've decided to move forward with a more established platform. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Corporate speak for "you're too small, too desperate, too much of a risk." Ray sat in his cramped office, really just a shared workspace where he paid $400 a month for a desk, and did the math he'd been avoiding. Monthly burn rate, $17,000. Salaries, infrastructure, subscriptions, workspace, everything. Monthly revenue, $3,400. From the 2 small clients who hadn't left yet. Personal savings, $834. Business line of credit, maxed at $50,000. Monthly payment $1,200 he hadn't made in 2 months. Personal credit cards used for business expenses, $23,400 across 4 cards. Time until complete collapse. Maybe 6 weeks if he could figure out something. More realistically, 3 weeks. His phone rang. His business partner, Derek Walsh. "Ray, we need to talk." Derek wanted out. He'd been offered a position at a competitor, stable salary, benefits, actual future. "I can't keep putting money into something that's not working, man. You know I love you, but I've got a family to think about." Derek didn't have a family. Derek was 29 and single. But Ray understood the subtext. "I'm not going down with this ship." "I get it," Ray said, his voice hollow. "What do you need from me?" "Just sign the dissolution paperwork. I'm out, you can keep whatever's left." "I'm done." What was left was debt. An immense, crushing pyramid of debt that Ray Morris alone would be responsible for. He sat there after Derek hung up, staring at the photo on his desk. Lily and Violet at the park, laughing, happy, safe. They didn't know their father was failing. They didn't know the apartment they lived in was 2 months behind on rent because Ray kept having to choose between housing and keeping the business alive. They didn't know their father lay awake at night, calculator in hand, trying to figure out which bill he could skip this month. They didn't know their father was becoming the thing he'd sworn never to be. A man who couldn't provide. His phone buzzed. A text from Phoebe. "Thinking about you. Can't wait for tonight. Red heart. Tonight. Their 4-month anniversary." He'd made reservations at an Italian place. Nothing fancy, but nice enough. The kind of place that would cost $120 he didn't have. He could cancel. He should cancel. He should tell Phoebe the truth. His business was failing. He was drowning in debt. He could barely afford groceries. Instead, Ray typed back, "Me too," counting the minutes. Then he pulled up a website he'd been avoiding for weeks. Fast capital lending. Quick business loans when banks say no. The reviews were mixed. The interest rate was 39%. The fees were predatory. But they approved within 24 hours. No extensive credit check. Just proof of business registration and a pulse. Ray filled out the application for $10,000. Told himself it was temporary. Told himself it would buy time to find new clients. Told himself he'd never, ever let Phoebe know how close he was to losing everything. The approval came through in 19 hours. The money deposited into his account at 2:47 p.m. the next day. The countdown to complete destruction had begun. That night at the Italian restaurant, Phoebe looked beautiful. She wore a green dress Ray hadn't seen before. He didn't know she'd bought it at a thrift store and tailored it herself because retail was impossible. Her hair was styled, makeup perfect, smile bright. She looked like a woman who had her life together. "You look amazing," Ray said, and meant it. "You don't look so bad yourself," Phoebe teased. Ray wore a button-down he'd ironed that morning, the cuffs fraying slightly but hidden under his sport coat, the one he'd worn to every important meeting for 5 years. They ordered wine. Ray insisted. He paid with the credit card he'd just paid down with his predatory loan, a financial shell game that would eventually collapse, but tonight it worked. Tonight he could be the man Phoebe deserved. "I have something to tell you," Phoebe said halfway through dinner, her voice soft. Ray's stomach dropped. "She knows. She figured it out. She's leaving. My sister wants to meet you," Phoebe finished. Relief washed over him. "That's great. I'd love to meet her. She's protective. Fair warning, she's going to grill you about your intentions, your credit score, and probably your views on climate change." Ray laughed, but the word credit score hit like a slap. His head dropped 140 points in 6 months. "My intentions are honorable," Ray said, taking Phoebe's hand across the table. "Your sister can interrogate me all she wants." What he didn't say. "My credit score is 584. My business is failing. I just took a loan from a company that will probably own my soul in 3 months. I'm lying to you every single day, and I don't know how to stop." What Phoebe didn't say. "I'm terrified your success makes me look small. I'm terrified you'll see how broken I am. I'm terrified that if you knew I was $2,100 in payday loans, you'd realize I'm not the woman you thought I was." They held hands across the table. Two beautiful liars in love with each other's masks. "I'm really lucky," Ray said quietly, "to have found you." "I'm the lucky one," Phoebe whispered back. The truth sat between them, uninvited and unnamed. Neither of them was lucky. They were both drowning, alone in a crowded restaurant, surrounded by people who had no idea the people at table 7 were slowly destroying themselves to maintain a fiction. Now, before we go any further, I need to tell you something. This story, it doesn't go where you think it does. There are twists coming that will completely change how you see everything you just watched. So if you want to know the full truth, and trust me, you do, make sure you're subscribed. Because if you click away now, you'll regret it. The thing about financial catastrophe is it doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It creeps in on quiet Tuesday mornings when you're drinking coffee and checking your email. For Ray, it was an email from Frederick Doug at Fast Capital Lending. "Dear Mr. Morris, your first payment of $1,834.27 is due on the 15th. Please ensure your account has sufficient funds to avoid late fees of $150 and additional interest penalties. We appreciate your business. Best, Frederick Doug, Senior Account Manager." Ray stared at his laptop screen in his empty office. $1,834.27 per month. For 24 months. He'd borrowed $10,000. He would pay back $44,023 if he made every payment on time. His phone rang. He didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Desperation makes you answer unknown numbers. "Ray Morris? This is Andrea from TechConnect's Workspace. I'm calling about the past due balance on your account. We haven't received payment for the last 2 months, and if we don't receive $800 by end of week, we'll need to terminate your membership." His workspace, where he'd built his failing company, where his mail still went, where he'd told Phoebe he had important meetings every week. "I'll have it to you by Friday," Ray said, knowing Friday was 4 days away, and he had no idea where $800 would come from. "Thank you, Mr. Morris. We really appreciate it. The workspace payment, the business loan payment, his personal credit card minimums, his rent, his car payment, his phone bill, his daughter's school expenses, groceries, utilities, and now the fast capital payment. Total monthly obligations, $7,400. Total monthly income, after the client loss and Derek's departure, $0. His phone buzzed. A text from Derek? "Bro, people are asking about Tech Connect. What should I tell them?" What Derek meant. "People are asking if you're failing. Should I protect your reputation or tell the truth?" Ray typed back, "Tell them we're in a growth phase, pivoting our model. All good here." The second that message sent, Ray realized what he'd just done. He'd asked his ex-partner to lie for him, to help maintain the illusion that Ray Morris, entrepreneur and father, had everything under control. Across town, Phoebe Saunders sat in a Starbucks. She'd stopped buying coffee. Now she just ordered water and used the Wi-Fi, staring at her phone screen. Banking app, checking. $84.12. Savings, $0. Loan app number 1 Speedy Cash. Balance due, $784.23. Due date, tomorrow. Late fee if missed, $75. Loan app number 2 Quick Loan. Balance due, $643.18. Due date, 3 days. Late fee if missed, $75. Loan app number 3, Rapid Borrow. Balance due, $891.45. Due date, 5 days. Late fee if missed, $100. Her paycheck would hit tomorrow, $2,847 after taxes and insurance. Student loan, auto-deduct $943. Rent, $1,450. Total, $2,393. Remaining, $454. The 3 loans totaled $2,318.86. She had $454. The math didn't work. The math would never work. Every time she paid off one loan, she needed to take out another to cover the gap. The hole was getting deeper, and she was running out of shovels. Her phone rang. Her sister, Jennifer.
"Hey, Yen.
"Phoebe, Mom just called me. She said you canceled on Sunday dinner again. That's 3 weeks in a row. What's going on? I can't afford the gas to drive to Mom's house. I can't afford to bring the wine I usually bring. I can't afford for Mom to see my face and know immediately that I'm drowning. Just been really busy with work and Ray," Phoebe said lightly. "New relationship, you know how it is. The guy you won't let me meet? I told you we're planning that. He's just been busy with his startup." His startup, right? Phoebes, is this guy actually successful? Or is he another project? Another project. Like Eric, who'd needed help getting his food truck off the ground. Like Michael, who'd just needed a loan to pay his security deposit. Like James, who'd sworn he'd pay her back for covering 3 months of his rent while he got on his feet. Phoebe had a type, men who needed saving. Because if she was too busy saving them, she didn't have to face her own drowning. But Ray was different. Ray was successful. Ray had a startup, clients, a trajectory. Ray didn't need her money, he had his own. Except last week, Ray had mentioned something about a challenging quarter and cash flow timing issues. Corporate speak Phoebe recognized because she heard it at work before layoffs. Except Ray had seemed stressed lately, checking his phone constantly, spacing out mid-conversation. Except Ray had suggested they postpone their planned weekend trip to the beach because he needed to focus on some business stuff. Except, he's not a project, Phoebe said firmly. He's amazing, Jen. He's a great dad. He's building something real. And he treats me like you're worth something. Like you're not a burden. Like you're an equal partner. Like I matter, Phoebe finished quietly. You do matter, Phoebe. But you matter whether you're with someone or not. You know that, right? After they hung up, Phoebe opened her email. There was one from Rapid Borrow with the subject line, "You're pre-approved for $5,000. She shouldn't. She absolutely should not take another loan. This was insanity. This was how people ended up completely destroyed. This was..." Her phone buzzed. "Ray. The girls want to know if you're coming to their school play next week. Violet specifically asked if you could sit with us. No pressure, but she's been practicing her lines for you." Phoebe looked at her phone, at the loan offer, at the $84 in her checking account, at the picture Ray had sent. Violet in a homemade tree costume, grinning at the camera, eyes bright with hope. She clicked on the Rapid Borrow email. Application status: approved. Deposit timeline: 24 to 48 hours. Monthly payment: $417 for 18 months. Total repayment: $7,506. Phoebe clicked accept terms and conditions. The money hit her account 37 hours later. She paid off the 3 immediate loans, feeling a rush of relief that lasted approximately 6 minutes, until she realized she just traded 3 smaller fires for one massive inferno. But Violet's school play was next Tuesday, and Phoebe had promised to bring cupcakes for the cast party after. And she'd already told Ray she could handle it. And she couldn't be the woman who showed up empty-handed, who disappointed children, who revealed she was barely surviving. She ordered the cupcakes from a bakery. $87 for 3 dozen, decorated with little tree designs to match Violet's costume. When she picked them up, the baker smiled and said, "Someone's got a lucky kid." Phoebe smiled back and didn't correct her. Didn't say the kid wasn't hers. Didn't say she just spent her last $87 on cupcakes she couldn't afford for a school play for children she was terrified of loving too much, because what if Ray found out the truth and it all fell apart? The school play was in a cramped gymnasium that smelled like floor wax and childhood. Ray saved Phoebe a seat, and when she arrived with 3 boxes of perfect cupcakes, his face lit up. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I did. I had to prove I'm worth keeping." "I wanted to," Phoebe said. Lily and Violet's performance was objectively chaotic. Missed cues, forgotten lines, one kid crying because their costume fell off. But when Violet delivered her 3 lines as tree number 4, she looked directly at Phoebe and grinned so wide her gap tooth showed, and Phoebe felt something crack open in her chest. This was why she was drowning herself. For this moment, this family, this feeling of belonging to something that mattered. After the play, while the kids ate cupcakes and ran wild with sugar-fueled chaos, Ray pulled Phoebe aside. "Can I talk to you about something?" Phoebe's heart stopped. He knows. He figured it out. "I've been thinking," Ray said carefully, "about us, about the future. And I know it's maybe soon, but with rent being so expensive, and we're spending so much time together anyway, and the girls adore you." He took a breath. "What if we moved in together?" Phoebe stared at him. Ray continued in a rush. "We could get a 2-bedroom, save money on rent, split utilities. It would be good for the girls to have stability. And honestly, Phoebe, I don't want to spend nights without you anymore." What Ray didn't say: "I'm 2 months behind on rent and facing eviction. I need to split costs or I'll be homeless in 60 days. What Phoebe didn't say: "I can barely afford my studio. A 2-bedroom will be more expensive, but if I say no, you'll know something's wrong." What Phoebe said: "I would love that." They hugged, and over Ray's shoulder, Phoebe saw Violet watching them. Cupcake frosting on her face, hope in her eyes. "What have I done?" Phoebe thought, but it was too late. The machine was in motion. The spiral was accelerating. In 3 weeks, they would sign a lease on an apartment neither could afford. In 6 weeks, Ray's business would officially collapse. In 8 weeks, Phoebe would have 7 different loans totaling $43,000. In 12 weeks, everything would explode. But on that day, in that gymnasium, surrounded by children and cupcakes and the sweet lie of domestic possibility, Ray and Phoebe held each other and pretended they were building a future instead of accelerating toward catastrophe. The apartment was beautiful. 2 bedrooms, updated kit dug, hardwood floors, large windows that let in natural light and made everything feel possible. It was in a good school district for the girls. It had a parking spot. It had a washer and dryer in the unit, the kind of luxury that made Phoebe's current laundromat nightmare seem like a distant memory. The rent was $2,100 a month. Neither Ray nor Phoebe could afford $1,050 a month. But neither of them said that. "It's perfect," Phoebe said, walking through the empty living room, imagining furniture they couldn't buy. "The girls will love having their own room," Ray said, imagining stability he couldn't provide. They signed the lease using Ray's deposit from the Fast Capital loan and Phoebe's last $5,000 consolidation loan. First month, last month, security deposit, $6,300 total. Gone in one signature. The landlord smiled as they handed over the certified checks. "You two make a great couple. It's so nice to see young families getting started. Getting started. Not barely surviving. Not lying to each other daily. Not spiraling toward financial ruin at terminal velocity." Moving day was chaos in the best way. Lily and Violet ran through the empty apartment, their voices echoing off the walls, claiming the bedroom with the window that faced the park. Phoebe unpacked Kit Dug boxes while Ray assembled furniture they'd gotten from Facebook Marketplace, cheap, used, but functional. "This is nice," Ray said that night, after the girls were asleep in their new room, after the boxes were mostly unpacked, after they'd ordered pizza they couldn't afford to celebrate. He and Phoebe sat on their second-hand couch in their apartment of lies, and he pulled her close. "Yeah," Phoebe whispered. "It really is." For a moment, just a moment, Phoebe let herself believe it. Believe they were a normal couple doing normal things. Believe Ray's hand on her waist wasn't trembling slightly because he checked his bank account during the pizza delivery and seen $143.27. Believe her own forced smile wasn't hiding the fact that she'd added 2 new loan apps to her phone that morning. They made love that night with desperate tenderness, each trying to prove to the other and themselves that this was real, this was sustainable, this was worth the price they were paying. The first month in the apartment, the cracks started showing. Ray's business officially died on a Wednesday morning at 9:23 a.m. when his last remaining client sent the termination email. "Switching to an in-house solution," they said. "Thanks for everything." His revenue dropped to zero. His expenses did not.
Fast Capital Payment, $1,834.27, 2.
Personal credit cards, minimum payments $890. Due. Car payment, $340. Due. Phone bill, $180. Due. His half of rent, $1,050. Due. Groceries, gas, girls' activities, $600 needed. Total, $4,894.27. Income $0. He had 3 credit cards that weren't maxed. Combined available credit, $4,200. Ray did what drowning people do. He used credit to pay credit. Cash advance from card number 1 to pay Fast Capital. Cash advance from card number 2 to pay minimums on the other cards. Cash advance from card number 3 to cover rent. The fees were unconscionable. The interest rates were predatory. But what choice did he have? Tell Phoebe? Admit to the girls that Daddy's business failed? Move them out of the apartment they just moved into? Just until I find something new. Just until I can stabilize. Just until... Ray started applying for jobs. Corporate jobs. Boring jobs. Stable jobs. Jobs that would pay $75,000 a year and make him feel like a failure because he tried to build something and couldn't. No one called back. His resume showed 5 years of self-employment, which to HR departments translated as can't work for others or unemployable or too big a risk. Phoebe had 7 loan apps on her phone now. She'd organized them into a folder labeled shopping, so if anyone saw her screen, they wouldn't ask questions. Each app had a cheerful icon, a piggy bank, a rocket ship, a smiling $sign. Each app was slowly destroying her life. Speedy Cash, $1,247 balance. Quick Loan, $893 balance. Rapid Borrow, $5,891 balance. Cash Now, $1,340 balance. LendFast, $743 balance. Payday plus $1,120 balance. Instant funds $980 balance. Total principal $12,214. Monthly minimum payments $987. Monthly interest and fees $743. Her paycheck $2,847. Student loans $943. Her half of rent $1,050. Loans $987. Total obligations $2,980. She was $133 short every single month. So she did what drowning people do. She borrowed more to cover the gap. $200 here, $300 there, just to make it to the next paycheck, just to keep the plates spinning, just to maintain the illusion that she was a functional adult capable of building a life with Ray and his daughters. She stopped buying lunch. Lost 12 pounds in 6 weeks because she was eating one meal a day and telling everyone she was doing intermittent fasting for health. She wore the same 5 outfits on rotation, hand-washing them in the sink to avoid laundromat costs. She walked 40 minutes to work instead of taking the bus, showing up sweaty and exhausted but saving $3.50 a day. Ray noticed she'd lost weight. "You look great," he said, concerned. "But are you eating enough? You're not, overdoing the diet thing, right?" "I'm fine," Phoebe said, smiling. "Just trying to be healthier." Ray noticed she walked everywhere. "Want to borrow my car? I'm working from home most days anyway." "I like the exercise," Phoebe said. "Clears my head." Ray noticed her phone buzzed constantly with notifications she quickly swiped away. "Popular today?" he teased. "Just work stuff," Phoebe said. "You know how it is." Lie. The twins noticed things adults thought they wouldn't. Lily noticed that Phoebe always said she'd already eaten when they invited her to have dinner with them. She noticed Phoebe wore the same black pants and pink top almost every time she saw her. She noticed Phoebe's hands shook sometimes when she thought no one was looking. Violet noticed that Daddy was always on his phone, always stressed, always saying, "Not now, baby," when she wanted to play. She noticed they didn't go to the park as much. She noticed Daddy's smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. One night, while Phoebe was helping them with homework at the Kit Dug table, Violet asked, "Phoebe, do you like living with us?" "Of course I do," Phoebe said, smiling. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you seem sad sometimes. Like Daddy." Phoebe's smile faltered. Across the room, Ray looked up from his laptop, where he was frantically searching emergency loans bad credit. "I'm not sad, sweetie," Phoebe said softly. "I'm just tired from work sometimes." "Is work hard?" Lily asked. "Sometimes, but it's worth it." "Why?" "Because if I don't work, I can't pretend to be someone you deserve to have in your life. Because I'm terrified that if I stop running on this hamster wheel, I'll collapse and you'll see me for what I really am, broken. Because it helps me afford nice things," Phoebe said. "Like living here with you guys." Violet considered this, then went back to her math homework. But Lily watched Phoebe for a long moment, her old soul eyes seeing more than a 7-year-old should. Ray's phone rang at 7:14 p.m. on a Thursday. Unknown number. He'd stopped answering those, but this one called 3 times in a row. "Hello, Ray Morris? This is Chad from Fast Capital Collections. We haven't received your payment for this month, and you're now 15 days past due. Your balance is $12,847, and you owe an immediate payment of $2,234.27, including late fees." Ray stepped out onto the balcony, closing the sliding door behind him. "I'm working on it. I just need a few more days. Mr. Morris, I'm required to inform you that continued non-payment will result in legal action and a lien against your business assets." "I don't have business assets. The business failed." "Then we'll pursue personal assets. Vehicle, property, garnishment of wages." "I don't have wages right now." Silence. Then, "Mr. Morris, are you telling me you have no income and no assets?" "I'm telling you I'm trying my best and I need more time. I can offer you a settlement. If you pay $8,000 immediately, We'll forgive the remaining balance. Ray laughed. Came out broken. If I had $8,000, I wouldn't be late. Then we'll proceed with collections. Have a good evening. The call ended. Ray stood on the balcony, looking at the parking lot below, wondering what would happen if he just kept walking. Not suicide. Just walking. Just disappeared into the night and never came back. Let someone else deal with the wreckage. Behind him, the sliding door opened. Phoebe stepped out. Ray, you okay? He turned, forced a smile. Yeah, just a work call. At 7 p.m.? Client in a different time zone. Phoebe nodded, but didn't fully believe him. She wrapped her arms around herself. The temperature had dropped, and she'd lost so much weight she was always cold now. Ray, can I ask you something? His heart stopped. She knows. She figured it out. Are we okay? Financially, I mean, with the move and everything, I just want to make sure we're fine, Ray said quickly. The startup is in a transition period, but I've got some consulting gigs lined up. We're totally fine. The lie sat between them like a third person on the balcony. Okay, Phoebe said quietly. Because if we weren't, you know you could tell me, right? No, I couldn't. Because you'd see me as a failure. Because you'd leave. Because I'd lose you and the girls would lose you and I can't. I can't. I know, Ray said. But seriously, we're good. They stood there in the cold. Two people lying to each other about the same thing. Each protecting the other from a truth they were both drowning in. Inside, Violet called out, Daddy, Phoebe, we want to show you something. They went back inside, back to the warmth, back to the performance of being a happy family in their beautiful apartment of lies. Neither of them knew that in 3 weeks, Ray would pawn his late wife's engagement ring. Neither of them knew that in 4 weeks, Phoebe would hit $43,000 in total debt. Neither of them knew that in 8 weeks, they would destroy each other in the most public way possible. But some part of them, the part that woke them up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, the part that made their hands shake when checking their phones, the part that knew this couldn't last. Some part of them knew the truth. They weren't building a life together. They were building a disaster. And the collapse was coming. Ray decided he wanted to marry Phoebe on a Saturday morning in late October. Nothing dramatic prompted it. No grand revelation. Just Violet asking, is Phoebe going to be our real mom? And Ray realizing the answer he wanted to give was yes. Yes, he wanted this woman in their lives permanently. Yes, he wanted the girls to have the stability of a complete family. Yes, despite everything spiraling around him. The debt, the failed business, the collection calls, the fear. He loved Phoebe Saunders with a fierce, desperate intensity that terrified him. The problem was the ring. His late wife's engagement ring sat in a safe deposit box at First National Bank, in a small velvet box that Ray hadn't opened in 7 years. It was supposed to be for the girls when they were older, something to remember their mother by, something tangible from the woman who'd sacrificed everything for them. But Ray was drowning, and Phoebe deserved a proper proposal. And maybe, if they were married, if they were truly committed, he could finally tell her the truth and they could face it together instead of alone. The logic was flawed. Ray knew it was flawed. But desperation makes you rationalize insanity. He went to the bank on a Wednesday morning, telling Phoebe he had a business meeting. The safe deposit box cost $85 a year, one of the few bills he'd managed to keep current because the thought of losing that ring, losing that piece of Keisha, was unbearable. The bank employee led him to the private viewing room. Ray sat alone with the box, hands trembling as he lifted the lid. The ring was exactly as he remembered it. A simple solitaire diamond, nothing extravagant, but elegant. Keisha had loved it. It's perfect, she'd said when he'd proposed 8 years ago. Because it's real.
No pretense.
Just us.
No pretense.
Just us. Ray picked up the ring, and something inside him cracked. Keisha would hate what he'd become. Hate the lies, the debt, the pretense. Hate that he was using her memory to justify a proposal he couldn't afford to honor properly. But the alternative was losing Phoebe. Losing the family they were building. Losing the chance at happiness he thought he'd forfeited when Keisha died. Ray closed the box. held the ring in his palm, made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. "I'll make it right," he whispered to a ghost. "I promise, Keisha. I'll figure this out and I'll give it back to the girls. I need her. We need her." He pocketed the ring and walked out of the bank, feeling like he'd just robbed a grave. 3 blocks away, Phoebe sat in a predatory lending office that called itself Community Financial Solutions, but should have been named We Destroy Lives, LLC. "So, Ms. Saunders," the loan officer said. His name was Frederick Doug, and he wore an expensive suit that was probably financed by the financial misery of desperate people. "You're looking to consolidate your existing debts into one manageable payment." "Yes," Phoebe said, trying to sound confident despite her hands shaking in her lap. Frederick reviewed her application. 7 current loans totaling $12,214. Monthly payments of $987. Your income is $2,847 monthly, with existing obligations of... He looked up. "This is tight." "I know. That's why I need to consolidate. If I can lower the monthly payment, I can offer you $15,000 at 42% over 36 months. Monthly payment would be $648. That would save you $339 monthly." Phoebe's heart leapt. $339 a month would change everything. She could breathe. She could eat properly. She could stop the constant panic. "That would be amazing," she said. Frederick smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "There's a $750 origination fee, taken from the loan principal, so you'd receive $14,250. Use $12,214 to pay off your existing loans, leaving you $2,036 for whatever you need." $2,036. More money than Phoebe had seen in her account in months. "And there's one more thing," Frederick said, pulling out another document. "I noticed in your application you mentioned a boyfriend, Ray Morris." Phoebe stiffened. "Yes, but this loan is just for me." "Of course, but I also work with small business owners, and I happened to see his name come across my desk recently. He has some outstanding business debts that are in collections." Phoebe's stomach dropped. "What? I probably shouldn't mention it, client confidentiality and all. But since you're living together, I thought you might want to know. Sometimes it's helpful for partners to support each other through financial challenges." "How much debt?" Frederick hesitated, then leaned forward conspiratorially. "Between you and me, about $15,000 in immediate collections. But if he doesn't address it soon, it'll balloon with fees and legal costs. Could affect his credit, his custody situation with his daughters." Phoebe's mind raced. Ray never mentioned debt. He said the business was in transition, that consulting gigs were coming, that everything was fine. He lied, just like you're lying to him. A voice in her head whispered, "What if?" Phoebe's voice was small. "What if I took out more? Could I get $20,000 instead? To help with his situation?" Frederick's smile widened. "You'd qualify for up to $25,000. Same interest rate, monthly payment of $1,040. Still less than what you're paying now for your current loans." The math was wrong. The math was so wrong. Phoebe was taking on Ray's debt she didn't fully understand, based on information from a predatory lender who clearly had ulterior motives. But all Phoebe heard was, "Ray needs help. Ray is struggling like I'm struggling. Ray has been lying like I've been lying. We're the same. And if I can help him, if I can be the one to save him, then maybe I'm worth keeping." "I'll take the $25,000, Phoebe said. She signed the papers in a daze. Origination fee, $1,250. Principal received, $23,750. Ray's debts, according to Frederick, $15,000. Remaining, $8,750 for her own loans and expenses. The money deposited into her account the next day. Phoebe paid off all 7 of her payday loans, feeling a rush of relief so intense she almost cried in the bank. Then she did something that in retrospect was either the most loving or the most destructive thing she'd ever done. She transferred $15,000 to Ray's account with a note. I know things have been hard. I love you. We're in this together. P. Ray saw the deposit notification at 2:47 p.m. while sitting in his car outside a Walmart where he'd just applied for a stocking position. $15,000. From Phoebe. With a note about love and partnership. He stared at his phone screen, feeling like he'd been punched in the chest. She knew. Somehow she knew about his debt, which meant she'd been investigating him, or someone told her, or she'd seen something he'd failed to hide. But worse, so much worse. She'd sent him $15,000 she didn't have. Ray knew Phoebe's salary. He knew approximately what her expenses were. There was no universe in which she had $15,000 sitting around to bail him out, which meant she'd borrowed it, which meant she'd gone into debt to save him from debt, which meant the woman he loved, the woman he was planning to propose to with his dead wife's ring, had just destroyed her financial future to protect him from his own failures. Ray sat in the Walmart parking lot and understood, with perfect clarity, that they were both drowning and they'd just tied themselves together. They were going down as one. His phone rang. Frederick Doug from Fast Capital. Mr. Morris, I'm calling because we received a large payment on your account today. $15,000, which brings your balance to $8,673. However, you're still significantly past due, and we need the remaining balance within 30 days, or we'll proceed with legal action. I understand, Ray said numbly. I also wanted to mention, just as a courtesy between professionals, that your girlfriend took out a significant loan to make this payment. She's a client of ours too now. Consolidated all her existing debts and took out additional funds. She's at $25,000 with us at 42% interest. Ray's blood went cold. You gave my girlfriend a $25,000 loan at 42%? She qualified, and she was eager to help you. It's actually quite touching. The lengths people go to for love. Frederick paused. Of course, now you're both in our system. And if either of you defaults, we have legal recourse against joint assets. Since you live together, that gets complicated. Just something to keep in mind. The call ended. Ray understood what had just happened. Frederick Doug had deliberately told Phoebe about Ray's debts, then offered her a predatory loan to help him, knowing it would trap them both deeper. This wasn't assistance. This was a coordinated attack. And they'd both walked right into it because they were too proud, too ashamed, too broken to tell each other the truth. Ray drove home in a daze. Phoebe was in the kit Doug when he arrived, cooking dinner, smiling nervously. Did you see? Why did you do that? Ray's voice was sharper than he intended. Phoebe flinched. I wanted to help. Frederick told me you were in collections, and I just thought, Frederick? You talked to Frederick Doug. He's my loan officer, for my consolidation loan. He mentioned he worked with you too, and, Phoebe, that man is a predator. He gave you a $25,000 loan at 42% interest. Do you understand what that means? I understand I love you. Phoebe's voice rose. I understand you've been struggling and hiding it from me, just like I've been hiding my own mess from you, and I thought if I could help you, if I could make it easier. You used my credit cards, Ray said suddenly, the pieces clicking together. You said you paid off some of my business debt, but you paid my personal credit cards, which I've maxed again, because I'm using them to stay alive. Silence. You're still in debt, Phoebe whispered. I didn't actually help. And you just took on $25,000 at predatory rates to pay debts I'd already recreated. They stared at each other across the kit Doug. Two people who loved each other, who tried to save each other, who'd instead dragged each other down. We're drowning, Phoebe said. Yeah, Ray agreed. We are. So what do we do? Ray thought about the ring in his pocket, the proposal he'd been planning, the life they were supposed to build. We figure it out, he said finally. Together. No more secrets. No more secrets, Phoebe echoed. They held each other in the kit Doug, and both of them knew they were lying again. Because Ray didn't tell her about the ring, and Phoebe didn't tell him that her new monthly payment, $1,040, meant she was now $326 short every month with no way to make it up. And neither of them knew that Frederick Doug had just texted his colleague Derek Walsh. Both targets secured. They'll default within 60 days. Proceed with phase 2. This wasn't random predatory lending. This was targeted financial destruction. And Ray and Phoebe had just made it personal. Moments like these, when everything hangs in the balance, this is why we tell these stories. Because life isn't simple, and neither are the choices we make. If you're feeling this as deeply as I am, do me a favor, hit that like button. Tells me these stories matter to you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because this story is about to take a turn that will break your heart and put it back together in ways you never expected.